My name is Nancy. I am 31 years old. I live in a small house in the city with my husband, Simon, and our baby son, Leo. Leo is 9 months old. When Simon comes home from work, Leo claps his hands and tries to crawl toward him. Simon owns a small transport company. He works very hard, but he is a kind man. Every evening he comes home around 7. He hugs me and asks about my day. Sometimes we watch a movie after Leo sleeps. Our life is simple and peaceful. But 3 weeks ago, everything began to change. One night, just before we went to bed, Simon sat down beside me with a serious face. "Nancy," he said quietly, "I need to travel tomorrow." I looked at him with surprise. "For how long?" I asked. "Maybe 2 or 3 weeks," he said. "My parents are having serious problems. Their divorce is getting worse. They want me there to help." I felt sad for him. Simon loved his parents very much. "Of course," I said softly. "You should go." Simon nodded, but then he added something strange. "Someone from my office might come to the house while I'm gone. He needs to collect an envelope from me," Simon explained. "I forgot to give it to him today." He walked to the hallway cabinet and opened a drawer. Inside was a large brown envelope. "Just give him this," he said. "Should I invite him inside?" I asked. Simon shook his head. "No, just give it to him from the door." The next morning, Simon left early. For 2 days, everything was normal. I cared for Leo, cleaned the house, and spoke to Simon on the phone every evening. But on the third night, something happened. It was 10:45 p.m. when I heard the doorbell. Leo was already asleep upstairs. The sound made me nervous. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the glass. The man standing outside made my body freeze. His name was Victor. 10 years ago, Victor was my husband. But he was not a good husband. I grew up in a small village far from the city. My family arranged the marriage when I was young. At first, Victor seemed charming, but after the wedding, everything changed. Victor drank every night. When he was angry, he shouted. When he was very angry, he hit me. I lived in fear. One winter night, after a terrible fight, I packed a small bag and ran away. I never returned to that village. I moved to the city. I studied. I built a new life. Years later, I met Simon. Simon was gentle, patient, and kind. He made me feel safe. But I never told him about Victor. I buried that past deep inside my heart. And now Victor was standing outside my house. I opened the door only a little. "What are you doing here?" I whispered. Victor smiled slowly. "I work for Simon now," he said. My heart stopped. "What?" "Driver in his company," Victor replied calmly. Then he pointed toward the house. "I came for the envelope." My hands began to shake. I walked to the cabinet and picked up the brown envelope. When I returned, Victor was watching me carefully. I handed him the envelope, but he didn't leave. Instead, he leaned closer and said quietly, "So, Simon doesn't know about our marriage." It was not a question. It was a statement. My throat felt dry. Victor laughed softly. "I thought so," he said. Then he turned and walked into the dark street. I closed the door and locked it quickly. My hands were shaking. I hoped I would never see him. The next evening, Leo had a small fever that day, so he slept earlier than usual. I checked his room 3 times before going to the bathroom. I turned on the shower and let the warm water run over my shoulders. For a moment, I tried to relax. Then suddenly, the lights went out. Everything became dark. The shower was still running, but the bathroom was completely silent and black. My heart jumped. "Maybe the power went out," I whispered to myself. Then I remembered Leo. I quickly put on my bathrobe and walked into the hallway. The floor felt cold under my feet. "Leo," I whispered softly. I opened the door to his room. Leo was still sleeping peacefully. I felt a small relief. Then I heard something. My body froze. The sound came from the front door. It was almost midnight. My heart started beating faster. The sound came again. I stopped in front of the door. My hands felt cold. "Who is there?" I asked quietly. "Nancy, open the door." My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. Victor. I slowly looked through the small window. He was standing under the porch light. His face was calm, but his smile was wrong. "Nancy," he said again, "I know you were inside." "Go away," I whispered. "You forgot something," he said. "What?" I asked. "Your past." Every night around 11 p.m., the bell rang. Sometimes Victor spoke, sometimes he just stood there smiling. One night he said, "You look tired." Another night he said, "Simon seems like a nice man." Each time he reminded me of my secret. Each time he reminded me he could destroy my marriage. I stopped sleeping well. Every sound made me nervous. One night Victor looked through the window and said something that made my blood run cold. "I saw your baby today," he said. "Cute kid." I closed the door immediately. That night I held Leo in my arms and cried quietly. I realized something important. I had escaped Victor once, but now fear was returning to my life again, and I could not allow that. Not for my child, not for my family. The next night, when Victor knocked, I opened the door wider. He looked surprised. "Well," he said, "this is new." I looked directly at him. "Come tomorrow night," I said. Victor raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "I want to talk." Victor smiled. "Good," he replied. "Maybe we can remember old times." The next day I prepared carefully. I called Simon's office manager, Mr. Harris. I told him that one of the drivers had been coming to my house late at night and threatening me. Mr. Harris sounded very concerned. "I will come tonight," he said. That evening I waited. My heart beat fast. At 11 p.m., the doorbell rang again. I opened the door. Victor stepped closer with a confident smile. "So," he said, Are you ready to talk? Yes, I replied. Come to the side of the house. Victor followed me toward the driveway. The yard was dark and quiet. Victor looked around. What is this? He asked. Then suddenly the porch lights turned on. A car stopped in front of the house. Two men stepped out. One was Mr. Harris. The other was a police officer. Victor's smile disappeared. The officer walked forward. Victor Adams, he said firmly, we received a report that you have been harassing this woman. Victor looked at me with anger. You called them? He said. I met his eyes calmly. Yes. Victor tried to laugh. She's lying, he said. But Mr. Harris shook his head. I have also received complaints from other workers about your behavior, he said. Then he added coldly, You are fired. The police officer stepped closer. And if you come back here again, he said, you will be arrested. Victor looked furious, but he said nothing. He turned and walked toward the street. Before leaving, he looked back at me. But for the first time in years, I was not afraid of him. Because my past was not my shame. It was my survival. The next evening, Simon called me. His voice sounded tired. How are you and Leo? He asked. We are fine, I said. Then I took a deep breath. Simon, when you come home, I need to tell you something about my past. Simon was quiet for a moment. Then he said gently, Okay. 2 weeks later, Simon returned home. That night, after Leo fell asleep, I told him everything. Simon listened quietly. When I finished, I looked at him with fear. But Simon simply took my hand. Nancy, he said softly, you survived something terrible. You don't need to hide that from me. Tears filled my eyes. For the first time in many years, I felt completely free. Sometimes the past returns to scare us, but fear only has power when we stay silent. And that night, I finally chose the truth. If you were in Nancy's place, what would you do? Tell me in the comments and subscribe for more stories.